If you'd told me a gritty Best Picture nominee was going to be about a ping-pong hustler, I would have said we ran out of movies. Turns out I was wrong.
Who'd ever thought we'd see the day?
So we've already seen one sports movie sneak its way into the Best Picture race this year. And in that case, the genre showed through at every scene. Marty Supreme is doing something very different. This isn't a sports movie that occasionally pauses for character. It's a character study that just happens to revolve around competition. Ping pong is the arena, not the point. What really surprised me is how deliberately this movie made the lead difficult to root for. Marty Mauser isn't a plucky underdog or a wide-eyed dreamer. He's manipulative, selfish, and constantly pushing people past their breaking point, including the audience. And yet, by the time the movie ends, that choice starts to feel like the entire thesis. And with that in mind, welcome back to The Rank. I'm John. Just a quick heads up on format. I'll hit a handful of behind-the-scenes facts that I call the potent notables. Then I'll do a movie overview with spoilers, and I'll finish by ranking the movie across 10 categories. And today I'm going to continue ranking the 2025 Best Picture nominees with Marty Supreme, starring Timothée Chalamet and Gwyneth Paltrow, written by Ronald Bronstein and Josh Safdie, who also directed it. Marty Supreme is nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Casting, Best Production Design, Best Cinematography, Best Director for Josh Safdie, Best Actor for Timothée Chalamet, and of course, Best Picture. But let's see how this one stacks up, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So as always, we start the potent notables with the box office info, and as of February 25th, Marty Supreme has made $95 million domestically and $60.5 million internationally, for a worldwide total of $155.5 million, which is all against a budget of $65 million, so a pretty decent hit. Now that $60 to $70 million budget made it A24's most expensive film, surpassing Civil War from 2024. That alone tells you this wasn't another quirky indie character study. This was a swing, and part of that swing comes from the physical commitment of its lead, Timothée Chalamet. He had been training in table tennis since 2018 in preparation for this role. He continued practicing while doing other projects like Wonka and Dune Part 1 and 2, The French Dispatch, and A Complete Unknown, literally traveling with a table so he could keep sharpening his game. And that long runway shows up in the film's kinetic, believable match sequences. The production also went all in on visual authenticity. Makeup artist Michael Fontaine applied pockmarks, freckles, and facial nicks to give Chalamet a rougher, more street-worn look. The transformation was convincing enough that Gwyneth Paltrow reportedly believed the acne scarring to be real and privately suggested that he try microneedling to fix it. And speaking of Paltrow, she joked to Vanity Fair that when she first met Chalamet to prepare for their intimate scenes together, she told him, "Okay, great, I'm 109 years old, you're 14. The age gap dynamic clearly was not lost on her. The film also blends professional actors with a surprising number of first-time performers. Several well-known public figures make their acting debuts here, including Kevin O'Leary, Tyler the Creator, John Catsimatidis, Pico Iyer, George Gervin, Ted Williams, Tracy McGrady, and Kemba Walker, adding a strange meta texture to the ensemble. And then there's the commitment level. In the scene where Marty Mauser is spanked by Milton Rockwell with a ping pong paddle, Chalamet insisted on doing it himself. Kevin O'Leary reportedly tried to convince him to use the stand-in that the production had prepared, but Chalamet refused. The fake paddle broke on the first hit, which meant he was struck with a real paddle for the take that actually made it into the film. O'Leary later said he, quote, immortalized his ass on film for the rest of time. That scene freaks me out even now. It sounds like Timmy's got a kink. I don't know. And finally, while the film is heightened in tone, it does draw from real history. Geza Rurig's character is based on Polish tennis table champion Alex Ehrlich. After surviving 4 years at Auschwitz, Ehrlich was sent to Dachau and reportedly spared from execution because the Nazis recognized him as a world champion. But those are all the potent notables. Let's go to the movie overview. So we've got another sports movie nominated for Best Picture this year. I already ranked F1 and it didn't turn out great. It was fine. It was just a very by-the-numbers sports movie. Will this one be as by-the-numbers as F1? Let me tell you, this movie is a wild ride. And instead of being a sports movie, it is absolutely a drama with a sports element. It's all about Marty Mauser, a young Jewish kid in New York City who has a dream to become the #1 table tennis player in the world. It doesn't really sound like the best setup for a movie. You know, maybe that's just me. It kind of reminded me of Balls of Fury. But Marty Mauser is a character that's more in the realm of Howard Ratner, Adam Sandler's character from Uncut Gems. He's someone that spends the entire movie kind of just being borderline reprehensible, but always with just enough redeeming qualities or charms to keep the audience invested. There are things that happen in this that feel like a stretch to believe, like hustling people out of money from ping pong, or seemingly underground ping pong clubs. I mean, the one that Marty frequents looks like it comes straight out of a boxing movie. You know, with the dingy gyms to get off that hard-nosed aesthetic. But when I looked up who the movie was based off of, Marty Reisman, it seems like the hustling and stuff was accurate. Maybe ping pong was treated like pool back in the 50s? I don't know. Here's what I do know. If Marty Reisman's life was anything like Marty Mauser's, then he was extremely lucky to live past his 20s. Now, I saw Timothée Chalamet as the star, and I didn't really remember the trailers, but I feel like in the trailers they made Timothée look sort of triumphant. So I was expecting to see someone typical, the hard luck underdog that you root for. But what we end up getting is a slick salesman type of guy, who is fully aware of how good he is, and is unscrupulous in his pursuit of his dream. Now, he pursues two women in the movie. One is a conquest, and one is a love interest. The conquest is a semi-retired actress who's married to a rich man who owns Rockwell Inc., which I guess is a giant pen conglomerate, and she's played by Gwyneth Paltrow. And the husband is played by Kevin O'Leary, or Mr. Wonderful as he's known on Shark Tank. Of course, as soon as you see him, you're not mistaking Kevin O'Leary as a benevolent protagonist. The love interest is Rachel, who's just young and infatuated enough with Marty to not see through his bullshit fold, even though apparently she's married as well. So he seems to have a type, though both of them do seem to be unhappily married. And as a quick aside, I was just recently going through the Best Picture movies that I had ranked, just sort of taking a look at them and adding keywords to my website, when I added Emery Cohen for Brooklyn. And I thought to myself, I really haven't seen him in anything besides that. Then, a couple days later, I'm watching this movie and his name pops up on the credits. So I was like waiting to see him. And it took me a while to realize that he was playing Ira, Rachel's husband. I mean, talk about a transformation. Also, poor Ira. I mean, they really trick the audience with him. They bring him in with a portrayal that's like akin to garbage. Like we are completely understanding of Rachel cheating on him. But really, Rachel tends to be a reflection of Marty at times. Except that her selfishness is that all she wants to do is to continue to give to Marty, and he's only willing to take. And in this movie, we're going to follow Marty from shoe salesman to the World Table Tennis Tournament in London to doing a ping pong show at halftime for the Harlem Globetrotters as they, well, trot the globe. Then he goes back home, then to Tokyo, etc. I mean, it's just he's all over the place. But with every choice that Marty makes, you can't help but cringe. The way he's able to manipulate and cajole people into doing what he wants them to do makes you equal parts annoyed and impressed with him. But at its core, this movie is really a journey of self-realization and humility for Marty. There's only so long you can live off of cashing in on your charm over people, that you're extracting more from them than you're giving. And that's what Marty's ultimately going to realize. Now, it's still going to hit a lot of the sports movie notes, but ping pong is really just a backdrop, because his victory doesn't come externally. In the end, it comes from his own understanding of himself, that he can't just feed off of everyone else, he needs to give also. So the choice to make Marty unlikable is a daring one. It's a double-edged sword, because the catharsis of seeing him achieve is muted because you don't necessarily care if he does. But the fact that they do it like that makes the ending feel more earned, in a way that it would have felt a little generic otherwise. It definitely was not what I was expecting, but will that be good or bad for the ranking? Let's find out.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, film coherence, cinematography, score/soundtrack/sound, script structure and dialogue, character relatability, production value, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And before I dive into the rankings here, I just want to say if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story, and it's essentially a sort of biopic of a ping pong player from the 50s. Honestly, I don't know that any other studio but A24 would have greenlit this movie. Just that first sentence elevator pitch would have scared away most. It's a good, gritty story. I never would have thought that a ping pong biopic would be gritty, but there it is. I gave it an 8.5. So that moves us to acting. Timothée Chalamet is phenomenal. I loved him in A Complete Unknown last year, but you could make the case that he was mimicking more than acting. However, with this one, there's no mimicry. This is just a powerful performance that is likely deserving of an award. And obviously he steals the show, but with this kind of movie, he has to. But everyone is great in this. Even Kevin O'Leary, who I think they just sort of told, be yourself. You know, just act like a rich, entitled prick. Still though, he's certainly not perfect. I gave it a 9.25. So that brings us to originality. Well, they made a gritty sports drama biopic about a ping pong player. There are a lot of aspects of this movie that are not original, but the fact that they built this movie and didn't lean into making their protagonist likable is pretty damn original. I gave it a 9. So that brings us to film coherence. This is a little tough because they bring in a lot of characters to show how Marty uses people. So we get a lot of exposition about peripheral characters that you can't help but wonder if they're really necessary in the movie. And because of this, it can feel a bit episodic, but it's really not too bad in that regard. Like the way they structured the movie, it could have felt way worse. So it's still in theaters and I don't want to spoil it too much. So I'll just say that there's one aspect of this that feels a little unnecessary and that they could have gotten to the same place without it. All I'll say is that it involves an old man and a dog. Again, it's not terrible, it just felt a little too sensational. I gave it a 9. So that brings us to cinematography. The cinematography was impressive. They wanted to give everyone the feeling of tension and exhaustion and desperation and passion, along with what their main character was feeling. They pulled in tight when they needed. They went wide to let you catch your breath. They obscured passion and danger. It was really well done. I gave it a 9.5. So that brings us to score/soundtrack/sound. I really liked the soundtrack and score to this movie. They could have gone with the regular sports movie epic tones, hit the notes you'd expect, down and out to underdog rise, but that wasn't the movie they were making, and they explored that with their music choices. I gave it a 9. So on to script structure and dialogue. I thought the script was excellent. I honestly can't believe how real this movie about an aspiring ping pong player who's essentially a con man felt. That's a credit to good writing. I think they could have structured it a little better to make it a little tighter, but I understood what they were going for. I gave it a 9.25. On to character relatability. This is a character study about a guy who most people probably wouldn't act like. However, the impetuousness of youth and the ambitious clarity are relatable. Believing in yourself is relatable, as is being humbled. Rachel can be very relatable, but sometimes her desire to impress Marty goes a little beyond relatability. Not a lot, but a little. I found Kay to be weirdly unrelatable. I get what they were going for with her, but she felt a little too distant for me. Anyway, I gave it an 8.5. So that brings us to production value. And the production value is excellent, as you'd expect a modern movie to be with a huge, multi-million-dollar budget. However, sometimes it just felt like things were almost too gritty. There's a scene where they go from the city to seemingly the boondocks in like no time. It just felt a little incongruous and I didn't really understand where they were. And maybe that's coherence, but I feel like they could have buttoned that up with production. Anyway, I gave it an 8.75. That brings us to the final category, my rank. I definitely really liked this movie. It was frustrating at times because you just wanted to shake him, but ultimately they did land the ending. It's a movie about perseverance, the indomitable human spirit, and humility. I gave it an 8.5. So altogether, that puts Marty Supreme at an 89.25, which makes it a Supreme Cinema. So this puts it at number 2 for 2025 so far, with only one movie left to go, just below Train Dreams and just above One Battle After Another. As for the all-time rankings, it's just below Past Lives and just above Finding Neverland. And if you're ranking along with me, drop your score in the comments. I'd be curious to see where we're aligned. But thanks for listening and or watching. Check out my other Best Picture ranking episodes or any of my other movie or sitcom ranking episodes on this channel. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. For up-to-date rankings, you can check out my website at therankedpodcast.com, or you can also email me at john@therankedpodcast.com. And if you really want to support the show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/therankedpodcast. But that's it. It's time for me to bounce. To doing a halftime trick ping pong.
Cut!
To doing a ping pong show for halftime of the fucking motherfucker.
Cut!
To doing a ping pong show at halftime for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Cut!
Take 3.
To doing a ping pong show at halftime. I can't do it.
That's okay. Take your time.